Management Studies IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course MMPC-002 Human Resource Management for MBA program. Presenting Block 3 Performance and Compensation Management, Unit-10 Training and Development Part 2. Evaluation of training. Many organizations, especially industries, have been concerned with the difficult but critical question of evaluation. Training managers or organizers are also concerned with this question. All books on training have dealt with this issue, but no satisfactory and comprehensive accounts of evaluation are available. For the preparation of a comprehensive conceptual framework of training evaluation and an effective strategy of evaluating training programs and system, it is necessary to consider several aspects of evaluation. The basic question in this regard relates to the value of evaluation. Why evaluate training? Hamblin has discussed this question very well, that evaluation helps in providing feedback for improvement and better control of training. When we discuss feedback and improvement, two relevant questions are raised. Feedback to whom? Improvement of what? The former question relates to the main client groups and the latter to the main dimensions and specific areas of evaluation. Two additional questions are: how should evaluation be done? What specific ways should be adopted for it? These questions relate to the design and techniques of evaluation respectively. Main clients. There are several partners in the training act and process, and all of them are the clients of evaluation. Their needs for feedback and use of feedback for improvement or control will naturally be different with some overlapping. There are four main partners in training and clients for evaluation. Number 1, the participants or learner. Number 2, the training organization or institute, including curriculum planners, program designers, and program managers. Number 3, the faculty or facilitators or trainers. And number 4, the client organization, the ultimate user and financier of training. Literature on training evaluation has not paid due attention to this respect. Dimensions of evaluation. Attention has been given to the main dimensions of training, and most of the suggested models are based on these. Four main dimensions have usually been suggested: context, inputs, outputs, and reaction. The last dimension is not in the same category as the other three. Reaction evaluation can be of contextual factors, training inputs, and outcomes of training. In all discussions of training evaluation, the most neglected aspect has been the training process, which cannot be covered by training inputs. The climate of the training organization, the relationship between participants and trainers, the general attitudes and approaches of the trainers, training methods, etc. are very important aspects determining the effectiveness of training. Evaluation of the training process, therefore, should constitute an important element. We may thus have four main dimensions of evaluation. They are: number 1, evaluation of contextual factors; number 2, evaluation of training inputs; number 3, evaluation of training process; and number 4, evaluation of training outcomes. Areas of evaluation. The various areas of training evaluation need more attention and elaboration. 7 main areas with some sub-areas under each are suggested for consideration. Those 7 areas of evaluation are: pre-training factors, training, training management, participant development, organizational development, and post-training factors. Effectiveness of training depends on the synergic relationship and collaborative working amongst the 4 major patterns of training, that is, participants, training organization, trainers, and client organization. Hence, evaluation should provide the necessary feedback to these for contributing to training effectiveness. Training effectiveness depends not only on what happens during training, but also on what happens before the actual training, that is, pre-training factors, and what happens after the training has formally ended, that is, post-training factors. Evaluation cannot neglect these important contextual factors. Various aspects of the training process that are not direct training inputs also contribute to its effectiveness. Evaluation should therefore also focus on these factors. The focus or the main task of evaluation should not only be in the nature of auditing, that is, measuring training outcomes in terms of what has been achieved and how much, but should also be diagnostic why the effectiveness has been low or high, and remedial, that is, how effectiveness can be raised. Design of evaluation. The overall design of evaluation helps in planning the evaluation strategy in advance. Evaluation designs can be classified in various ways. Two important dimensions, however, are the time when evaluation is done or data is collected, and the group or groups involved in evaluation or data collection. Data on relevant aspects may either be collected only once after the training is over, or on two or several occasions before training interventions, and later again after the training is over. On the other hand, only one or more group that undergoes training may be involved in evaluation. These methods give us four basic designs of evaluation. They are: number 1, longitudinal design. It is one in which data is collected from the same group over a length of time, usually on several occasions, but at least twice, that is before and after training. In the latter case, it is called before-after design. Number 2 is ex post facto design. In ex post facto design, data is collected from the group which has been exposed to training only after the training is over. Obviously, this design has inherent limitations in drawing conclusions from evaluation. But in many practical situations, this is a reality and is a challenge for evaluation designers to devise ways of extracting the most in such a design. Number 3 is comparative survey design. It may involve collection of data from many other groups, in addition to the group exposed to training. In this design also, there is no control and there are limitations in drawing conclusions. And the last is group design. The design with a great deal of control and sophistication is the matched group design. Several variations of this design can be used. Another group matched on some significant dimensions where the group being exposed to training can be identified and data can be collected from both, once, that is ex post facto, or several times, that is longitudinal. Or matched sampling can be selected for a comparative or cross-sectional survey. The design can be made very sophisticated with several matched groups, one with training treatment, another with a different type of treatment, and the third with no treatment, combined with E&L designs, that is ex post facto design and longitudinal design, and making it a blind study for investigators who do not know which group is of what category. Both experimental and quasi-experimental designs can be used. Enough literature on these designs is available. Hamblin has referred to some of these, but not in a systematic way. He makes a distinction between the scientific approach, that is, rigorous evaluation to test hypotheses of change, and the discovery approach, that is, evaluation to discover intended and unintended consequences. This distinction does not serve any purpose and is in fact misleading. There can be variations in the degree of sophistication and rigor. Also, there may be different objectives of evaluation. Evaluation may be used as part of the training process to provide feedback and plan for using feedback. Evaluation may be made to find out what changes have occurred in terms of scope, substance, and sustenance in the latter case, and the design will be more complex and more sophisticated. As already discussed, the purpose of evaluation will begin on the main clients of evaluation and what they want to know. Evaluation techniques. These can be classified in various ways. One way to classify them into response, that is, reactive techniques. Techniques requiring some kind of response produce some reaction in those who are responding. The very act of asking people questions, that is, either orally or in a written form, may produce change. Since they produce reactions, they are called response or reactive techniques. Other techniques can be called unobtrusive measures or secondary source data techniques. The word unobtrusive being borrowed from Webb et al. These make use of available data or secondary source data. Hamblin calls them keyhole techniques, thereby expressing his disapproval of such measures. There is no reason to consider such measures as unethical. All indicators, indices, etc. are such measures. For example, to measure whether general morale has improved in a unit, it may be more useful to use secondary source data like examining figures of absenteeism rather than asking questions. Similarly, an unobtrusive measure or secondary source of data may be much more creative and imaginative and need to be discovered and used more often for evaluation. However, if some data is collected about individuals' behavior, that is, whether by asking others or unobtrusively without their knowledge and approval, will be unethical. This applies as much to responsive techniques as to unobtrusive ones because collecting information from a third person without the approval or knowledge of the person being studied is unethical. Another non-reactive technique, a very old one, is that of observation. Observation can also become a reactive technique if persons being observed know that they are being observed. The method of data collection for response or reaction techniques may include interviews, written reactions, that is, questionnaires, scales, open-ended forms, and projective techniques. One additional method in this category worth mentioning is group discussion and consensus report. In many cases, discussion by a small group consisting of individuals having experience and with an adequate knowledge about it may give better evaluation results than figures calculated from routine responses. Advances in scaling techniques have made the greatest contribution to the development of evaluation techniques. Techniques based on well-prepared instruments to measure various dimensions are being increasingly used. Various methods of scaling can be used to develop effective evaluation techniques. The three well-known scaling techniques associated with Thurstone, Likert, and Gutman can be imaginatively used in preparing new evaluation tools. More recent developments have opened new vistas for sophistication in evaluation work. Hamblin has done an excellent job in discussing the studies in training evaluation to illustrate the techniques used. His book will be found very useful for this. Whitelaw has also cited some studies but has not been able to integrate them. At the end of his book, Hamblin has summarized the various techniques discussed under his 5-level model. This model includes number 1. Reaction. Reaction scales, reactions notebooks and participations, observers, records, studies of inner-trainee relationships, and of course reaction form, post-reactions questionnaires and interviews, and expectations evaluation. Number 2. Learning. Pre-course questionnaires to instructors, programmed instruction, objective test, essay type written or oral examinations, assessment by trainees of knowledge changes, skill and task analysis, standardized test of skill, tailor-made techniques for evaluating skill, assessment by trainees of skill changes, standardized attitude questionnaires, tailor-made attitude questionnaires, semantic differential scales, and group feedback analysis. Number 3. Job behavior. It includes activity sampling, Cisco and Widenius techniques, observers' diaries, self-diaries with interview and questionnaires, appraisal and self-appraisal, critical incident technique, observation of specific incidents, depth interviews and questionnaires, open-ended depth techniques, and prescriptions for involving management in the training process. Number 4. Organization. Indices of productivity, labor turnover, etc., studies of organizational climate, use of job behavioral objectives to study behavior of non-trainees, and workflow studies. And number 5. Ultimate value. It includes cost-benefit analysis and human resource accounting. Retraining. Retraining programs are designed as a means of avoiding personal obsolescence. It is the tendency of the individual worker to become outdated in terms of job requirements. This is true of employees at every level in the organization. However, retraining is focused on rank and file workers. This is so because their number is large and technological changes make its immediate impact on those who work closer to technological resources. Besides, they are less equipped to foresee their personal needs and because they require more assistance in advanced planning than others do. Workers require a refresher course to help them recall what they have forgotten and to overcome some practices they have come to accept as satisfactory. They also need to bring them with respect to relevant new knowledge and skill. The need for retraining also arises as a result of technological changes, resulting in changes in equipment, tools, and work methods. Some issues in training. Improvement of training in organizations require paying attention to some critical dimensions. The role of training for development of people and organizations has been discussed separately in detail, including pre-training work, curriculum development, selection of methods, building a training establishment, and post-training support and follow-up. However, a few important dimensions which require special attention in organization are: number 1, learning. The main function of training is to facilitate learning. The most effective learning is self-initiated and self-managed learning. Training should help in developing a culture of self-managed learning in general and is longer lasting than didactic learning from others. We are going to discuss now 15 different conditions which make learning effective. For this purpose, learning has been defined as the process of acquiring, assimilating, and internalizing cognitive, motor, or behavioral inputs for their effective and varied use when required and leading to enhanced capability of further self-monitored learning. These conditions are: number 1, authentic and open system of training institution or the place of learning. Number 2, non-threatening climate. Number 3, challenging learning tasks. Number 4, collaborative arrangements for mutual support of learners. Number 5, organization of graduated experiences of challenging successes. Number 6, mechanism for supportive and quick feedback. Number 7, opportunities to practice the skills learned. Number 8, opportunities to apply learning. Number 9, opportunities for and encouragement to self-learning. Number 10, opportunities for and support to experimentation. Number 11, emphasis on learning through discovery. Number 12, indirect and liberating influence by trainer or teacher through minimum guidance. Number 13, trainers or teachers' human values and faith in a man. Number 14, trainers or teachers' high expectations from learners and openness to examine own needs. And number 15, trainers or teachers' competence. Next is pre-training work. Unless attention is paid to the following pre-training work, training cannot succeed in developing people, groups, and organizations. Proper identification of training needs, developing a strategy of development of people through training, including the rationale and criteria of who or which role occupants should be sent for training, how many at a time, and in what sequence, the process of helping people to volunteer, and the departments to ask for training, pre-training workshop in some cases to raise the level of motivation of participants and finalize the curriculum, building expectations of prospective participants from training, etc. Post-training work. Equally important is what is done after the training is over. The training section needs to help the concerned managers to plan to utilize the participants' training and provide the needed support to them. Post-training work helps in building linkages between the training section and the line departments. Follow-up work by the training section is critical. Expanding the training concept. The concept of training has to be widened, and training should include not only programs involving face-to-face classroom work, but should also include other ways of providing information and giving necessary skills to people in an organization. In fact, getting people together in a group for giving information which can be given in some other form is a waste of resources. Moreover, the organization cannot afford to provide the necessary information and skills on all aspects to all those who need it by using the classroom model of training. Self-instructional packages and manuals of various kinds can be very rich and useful resources of training, even without collecting people at one site. For example, all those who join the organization should know about the budgetary processes and the concept of transfer price. If a self-instructional book is prepared on this subject, This can be given to anyone who joins the organization so that he gets familiar with this concept and can understand the whole process of all the negotiations taking place in the company. It may therefore be recommended that a list of areas in which such self-instructional material can be prepared should be developed. This may include the new sales tax rules, new environmental changes, basic financial problems, calculating contributions, etc. Similarly, manuals of simple office procedures, leave rules, various personal practices, etc. may also be prepared. However, the immediate superior officer may help the employees by calling them for dialogue and further clarifications after the employees have learned through such self-instructional books. And the last is preparation of training materials. There is a great need to develop more training materials. Unfortunately, most of the training programs use only the lecture method. While the lecture method itself needs improvement through use of small group discussions, etc., new training materials need to be developed. This will include simulation exercises and games, role-play cases and material, cases and incidents, practical work manuals, test and instruments, and self-instructional materials. Preparation of such material involves large investment of money, time, and energy, but it is still worthwhile and will have much higher payoff than the cost of the investment. In some cases, an organization can get help from outside experts in the preparation of such material, especially simulation exercises and games, role plays, cases, and self-instructional material. Making training a strategic function. Turnaround in thinking on training is already evident that it must move from periphery to the center, from being a service function to partnership in the main task of the organization. In a recent study of HR re-engineering at 34 large US companies, 69% respondents mentioned repositioning of HR as a strategic business partner with the management as a re-engineering goal. The same is true for training. Training is concerned with increasing organizational effectiveness. So far, the approach of training has been to offer or organize training for specific competencies. The movement is in the direction of training becoming more proactive and contribute to strategic thinking of the organization. This swing is something seen as abandoning the previous position and taking a new one. Repositioning does not mean taking an either-or position. Repositioning involves expanding the role and emphasizing the strategic role of training. While the strategic role is important, the other roles are not to be neglected. Training should attend both to the current as well as the future needs. The current perspective is more operational, while the futuristic perspective is strategic. The other dimension relevant for the role of training is that of content versus process. While the former emphasizes the development of specific competencies, the latter is concerned with developing learning and empowering capability. If we combine these two dimensions, we get 4 training modes. All the 4 modes of training are important. However, increasingly, training must move towards transformational and strategic roles. Now let's discuss here the 4 main roles of training. Number 1. Training role. Training systems should develop needed competencies for various role occupants. The emphasis is on making the current roles in the organization more effective by equipping people occupying these roles with the needed competencies. Training takes current strategy and implements it in terms of development of needed competencies. The trainers should deliver good training, and to do this, they themselves must have the relevant technical competencies. Next is research role. In order to move in the strategic direction, trainers need to search what competencies are needed and will be needed in the organization. Training then assumes 2 more functions, that is searching future competencies and developing them. Since the narrow boundaries of roles are breaking down, a person should develop flexibility to perform various roles. Multi-skilled workers is a good example of such effort. This becomes the first essential step for developing autonomous work groups and self-managed teams. The trainers who function as researchers need to develop their deep insight into organizational needs and process. Trainers should develop research competencies, especially those of action research. Next is consulting role. Greater emphasis on organizational effectiveness rather than only on individual role effectiveness will require more group process orientation of trainers. Development of effective teams influence both the effectiveness of the individual team members as well as organizational effectiveness. The emphasis is synergy building, thereby enhancing effectiveness of each other. This can be done if the trainers advance with their research competencies into a consulting role. That is, analyze problems, develop and use interventions involving concerned line of people to deal with the problems, help in implementing the agreed action plan, and support it to stabilize the decisions. This is one step further in contributing to the strategic process. Training is then seen as a useful function for developing organizational strategy. Trainers should develop both sharper understanding of the organizational strategy and consulting competencies to play this role effectively. Training functions should be used more frequently for international consulting. Trainers then will also develop more hands-on experience which will make training more realistic and relevant. And the last is change management role. This is the real strategic partnership role. The focus of training is to develop leadership at all levels in the organization. The ability of strategic thinking, taking responsibility, creativity to find alternative solutions, and empowering others. The objective is to transform the organization to make paradigm shift if needed. Training then becomes a true strategic partner. This is not possible without involvement of the trainers in the main business of the organization and gaining relevant business knowledge. Translating business strategy into training terms. Successful implementation of the business strategy of an organization will require some competencies. Business strategies indicates a broad direction for the future movement of an organization and preferred ways of doing so for successful implementation. The organizational task must be translated into various functional terms, that is marketing, financial, technology, human resources, training, etc. This helps to make strategy formulation and implementation participative. The overall organizational or business strategy should provide the framework for developing the training strategy to facilitate effective implementation of the strategy. It will include detailed approach to be adopted, competencies to be developed in thrust, evaluation, etc. Training strategy thus prepared may be reviewed by all the functional leaders preparing the strategies, which must be integrated into the main strategy for better synergy. Working more closely with line managers. People dealing with training should work more closely with line people. They are already working with line people in the areas of coaching, counseling, training, strategy planning for the departments, etc. When cross-functional task forces and implementation teams are set up, training people should join these. Similarly, when teams are set up to discuss training issues, etc., line people should be invited as members. Such close working together may help in integrating training with the various business groups and making training a strategic partner. Rousseau and Zager have made some recommendations to forge stronger links between training and business strategy. The partnership in training should be based on value-added partnership of the trainers and training system. As strategic partners, training people should raise serious discussion on how organizational strategy should be developed and how it can be implemented faster. Effective partnership comes out of professional competence and credibility. Towards learning organizations. Organization-wide learning, widespread and as a clear concept, dates only from the 1970s, and that learning had to be continuous only from the 1980s. Continuous learning that also embraces the environment, the organization in its environment, has been the top agenda since the 1990s. The organization-wide learning view is already a long way from viewing training as something for individuals or a class or a team at work or play. The next step, however, and each step after does not follow at all smoothly. Each calls for reconceiving the change effort and so also the training for it. The very next step makes occasional into permanent effort, and this can usually not be done with merely stretching what is already there, but often calls for programming, resources, and integration of a different order and reorganization. The next step again then broadens the perspective beyond the organization to include people outside and not just as clients, supervisors, or more or less distant regulators or other officials as before and one by one, but as essential partners and together. Turbulence, newly and reluctantly recognized as the now normal state of the environment and fed by instantaneous global information and tremors of all kinds, causes the shift to a continuously learning organization. It is a basic shift to a different disposition for the organization as a whole. It orients and prepares the organization differently, different even from the recent past when its people expected and then also buckle down to making a learning effort from time to time and here and there in the organization, and even when lately that exigency occurred ever more frequently. So the shift is not just for more economy of effort and smoothing out interruptions of normal living and working. Urgent as it is, understanding this move from spasmodic organization-wide learning to a continuously learning organization is essential and can be achieved by collaborative effort. Exhibits and extracts from major works may serve best for an overview and also for connecting readers with the works themselves for fuller exposition of views of special interest to them. What Chris Argyris calls double loop learning sets the stage for the rest, not only something learned that improves task performance or is equal to single loop learning, but the organization too takes note and modifies its policies, structure, ways of operating, and whatever else is necessary to support that change and to promote further changes. In both cases, learning only registers when it shows an improved performance. The key difference lies in the scope of that performance. In single loop learning, even if it be organization-wide, the organizational framework remains unchanged. In double loop learning, the organization uses the learning for changing its framework as well. Indeed, when that becomes its culture, it expects and is continuously prepared for using innovative inputs for improving performance directly and also improving itself. Basic to this shift is what Harold Bridger, a founder member of the Tavistock Institute in London, calls the double task: learning for improved performance plus learning how the improvement is affected for the next time use and also to guide adjusting the framework so it can support further learning. Training needs to be reoriented so that it becomes a strategic function and contributes not only to the development of individuals and teams, but is able to help the organization become a learning organization. Training therefore deserves rethinking and replanning. Now let's summarize the unit. To sum up, training is the act of increasing the knowledge and skill of an employee for doing a particular job. Training is required in every organization so as to cope the employees with the emerging trends. There are various methods of training as discussed in this unit. Depending upon the training need analysis, a particular method of training is chosen for the employees. Nowadays, training has almost become a strategic function of an organization. Evaluation of training is as important as execution of training, and the concept of retraining is based on this. You were listening to the audiobook by the School of Management Studies IGNOU for MBA program. Course code MMPC-002 Human Resource Management. Course Coordinator Professor Nayantara Padhi from School of Management Studies IGNOU. Voiceover by Harpreet Kaur. Edited by Tarannum Jahan. Program assisted by Jagbandhu Jana. Program produced by Dr. Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.